Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs Alex, Gore, and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex, Gore, and Lance Cayko.
Welcome to another edition of Inside the Firm. I am your host, Alex Grandma Gore. I'm here with Lance, Grandpa Cayko. Today we have a great episode for you. First, I want to kick it off with space. Because why not? Because everyone's going into space. Even Bezos is making a space station. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Okay. Not as good as what's going on in this little brain right here, but we'll leave that for later.
Yes, we will.
If you want to go to space, maybe get on a rocket ship. And maybe a Revit rocket ship.
Oh, yeah?
Which will teach you Revit and will not get you to the moon at all. It will take you nowhere near the moon. But it might make you efficient enough to afford a ticket to the moon.
I love it.
Because 2024,
That's a good point.
they're going to the moon.
Not only are they going to the moon, but with this competition that's going on with space travel, like it's going to get... I don't think people understand that it is truly going to get down to an affordable level for maybe even people in the upper middle class.
It will.
Yeah.
It will. And the government...
I'm not going there because I'm not crazy. There's no fish in space.
Well, but hey, wait. There are fish on Mars. You saw that. That was water.
There's water.
It's a kilometer
It's
thick.
entirely possible. I know, but like... Then I got to bring my ice auger up there. What jigs am I going to use?
These are good questions to explore. They're good. Would that be funny if they're like, hey, it only like in 20, 30 years, it only costs $10,000 to go to Mars.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to settle to be serious. I'm going to live there forever. It's like, this is a fishing trip. I heard there was fish up here. I'm going to get the first.
I got to catch the first one.
I got to do it.
Mars fish.
Anyways, going back, if you want to afford a Mars fishing trip, go to RevitRocketShip.com.
What are you doing?
Get efficient.
Get it on.
Get a system.
Got to get it on.
Get it done.
No choice but to get it on. All right. If you want to also continue with the efficiency, if you haven't used ArchiCAD Spec Wizard, now's the time. Spec Wizard is a patented tool that allows you to specify a product in just 3 steps, all for free and without even registering. Step 1. Research and find the great products for your project on ArchiCAD.com. Step 2. Use the Spec Wizard tool to select products and options. Step 3. Generate a complete 3-part CSI or CSC specification based on your selections. That's it. Again, Spec Wizard is free to use, requires no registration. Just head on over to ArchiCAD.com. That's ARCAT.com today and try Spec Wizard. After you get on the Revit rocket ship, please check that out. This episode is also brought to you by Pella Luxury. You have never experienced a brand like this before. The collection of brands within the luxury division of Pella are the conversation starters, the pioneers of the industry who provide window and door solutions to discerning architects, the building industry, and beyond. They have decades of experience creating things no one else in the world is creating, and the collection of brands are brought together to complement and build on one another. They don't push beyond the limits. They set them. Explore PellaLuxury.com/the firm. That's important. Explore PellaLuxury.com/the firm today. Let us know what you think. Al Gore, back to you.
All right.
Actually, it's back to me.
There you go. Hey, Lance, back to you.
Back to me again. Look at us throwing this around. Hitting the old record button on my computer here. If you are not subscribed to us on YouTube, I highly recommend you subscribe to us on YouTube.
You can see why I was called a grandma today.
Exactly. You could see his beautiful punum accented by the grandma shirt today. And you can see, look at these wonderful tumblers I got going on. But last but certainly not least, obviously the screen. So I've got an article here, and a lot of people who listen to this podcast, specifically the Friday show, are architects with small firms. So Architizer put out a pretty good blog. It's called Young Architect Guide, 10 Reasons to Work in a Small Architecture Firm. Ooh. Some of the best firms are living proof that great things come in small packages. So basically, Steve Ramos is passionate. From the article, Steve Ramos is passionate about design and architecture. He's the founder of Buildings Are Cool blog, an architect for LS3P in Charleston, South Carolina, and is working on his first book, Breaking the Box: Explode Out of Architecture School to a Successful Career as an Architect. So, in an effort to provide a balanced view, the author of this article reached out to his pal Daniel Beck to help write this guest blog. So here we go. Number one reason.
Okay.
The ability to pick and choose clients. Small firms can, in quotes, typically decide who they want to work with. The decision isn't made by a number cruncher or a marketing team and then passed down the food chains. Small firm practitioners get to look at their clients in the eye every single time and decide if it's a right fit or not. Al, do you agree?
To a certain extent.
Yeah,
it does.
thank
I
you.
mean, you still got to eat food. You still got to live. You still got to pay people.
Right?
Yeah,
Because
but-
what if you get low on cash and or work, food?
Or, hey, I don't want to do this remodel. Hey, do you like rent? Okay. Do you want a house? Okay, then do a remodel. I do see what they're talking about. Number two, a greater sense of importance. I think that this ties into some of the other ones, meaning at Leapskin, we had 10 or 12 people on one project. In this firm, we have 10 or 12 people on 100 projects.
150 plus
Yep.
every time.
So it means that, for example, I remember one, honestly, like each building we designed, maybe 4 or 6 people took a stab at it. And one time,
At Leapskin.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. This one lady did an awesome building. It was great. Worked late hours, developed it over 2 or 3 days, was going to go with it. Some other person came up with a design. It was cool. Immediately switched to that design. Trashed her all. But literally,
You know
I
what
mean, it went into
You know
the
what
trash.
I mean? Yeah, the metaphorical trash.
Yep. It went into the metaphorical trash. Like literally broke down crying. Like
Oh my goodness.
that's what happens.
Wow, I need to start making Al cry.
Yeah.
He showed me a design yesterday, and I was like, it's all right.
I almost cried.
Just pick up your computer.
Yeah. Throw it in the trash. Walk out.
I hope to be that profitable one day we can prank each other like that.
Yes. Yes.
So is this... Sorry. Did you actually touch on number 2 here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Importance, because you have more connection to it, because it's just you, not 10 people doing it.
Agreed. I'm gonna play. Here's the biggest reason I wanted to bring this up is I wanted to just test these. Alex and I are contrarians, if you haven't noticed, and we're skeptics, I would say, right? If just like not trusting everything right away and really needing it to run through our internal feedback loop or whatever you want to call it, right? Yeah. So if I do the contrarian thing with this point, about the greater sense of importance, yes, you're closer to it. It's going to feel more important to you. You're going to have the double-edged sword problem with that is that oftentimes, and I think every young designer experiences this, is they become emotionally attached to the project. Just like you said, you know? So it's still there, but maybe, but it's all part of the learning process.
And I would take this, like you said, with a grain of salt, because you could have a sense of importance that you're in control, you're in charge, you're doing a lot for this one project. They say no one rides the bench, which is true.
Yeah.
Which could happen at a bigger firm. But at a bigger firm, you could be working on a bigger project, right? Doing important things on a larger scale. So just know that this is, there's 2 ways to look at it, but we'll kind of highlight what we feel is true.
Number 3, I feel like this one is 100% true. Maybe Al will contradict me. Greater control of the finances. Small firm owners have a lot of control when it comes to how the firm should run from a fiscal standpoint, from what to charge for a project to how bonuses should be paid out. It's all determined by one or maybe 2 people. 2 people.
I would agree, and I would say that this ties directly into number 4, less management. Less management. I'll tell you about one thing. So, watching YouTube, this was Steve Jobs. It was probably 10, 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago. So what he said about Apple then might not be true about Apple now.
Sure.
Right? But what he said, he goes, you'd be blown away at Apple. Even in the 90s, Apple was huge. He goes, we don't have committees. He goes, we have people in charge. We have a chief engineer. We have a chief blah, 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 all these things. And we have teams that report to that. But we don't have a committee because, and I think like that was just it. But you can see why. if we have a committee making that one decision, right, it's going to be a bastardization because everyone wants their input. And then all of a sudden this one thing is going to have to do 10 things and it's going to do those 10 things suckily. Obviously, Apple doesn't do that. So less management means more direct access. It means less committees. It means sometimes less meetings. And I think that's something we have to be aware of as we grow, because I think it's natural to think like, oh, we got 10, 12, now we got 15, we got 20 people, like, hey, we should have a committee on this, because that's what a business does. Business makes
And we do have one committee. It's the sustainability committee, but
yep. And I think maybe we either rename it, but there's certain parts where people are in control of certain things. Your task is this. Your task is this. Your task is this.
Yeah.
So while people have input, it's not like 10 people are...
Decisions by committee is what we're trying to get rid of.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Less management.
Yep. Number 5, variety is the spice of life. In a small firm, everyone has to wear multiple hats. While constantly switching between roles can be tough, it also keeps things interesting. The tasks and challenges are different every day. One day, you can be working on a conceptual design. The next day, you are in the field, which is literally true with us. I mean, even more so. The next day, you are working on construction drawings, and then the same afternoon, you are interviewing with a potential new client. No 2 days are the same, and I really like that aspect of the small firm. Al, do you like it?
Yep. That's 100% true.
I think it makes the weeks go by, the days go by, insanely quick. And what's really weird about it is, and this is kind of a little tangential thing, is like, that last 2% of a construction project is a fellow general contractor, Al.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like it takes forever.
Yep.
But then at the same time, I am finding that the week goes by crazy fast.
Yes.
It's weird. It's this weird compression and expansion of time that's happening like simultaneously.
Yeah.
On the construction side of things.
Well, it's kind of, when you're doing stuff, it goes by fast. If you were just sitting there watching the sun pass, right? And that's
literally watching the paint dry.
With big organizations. And I'll just go to the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's called hurry up and wait, because you have to move like hundreds of people at a time, right? So, and you don't want to move them twice because that's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, we're going to move and do this exercise or this exercise. Okay. Got to get 100 people gathered. Got to get 100 people doing this stuff. You got to get 100 people on this. It's like, holy cow. So like everything takes an hour just to get there before you even start everything. So you're just waiting. And if it was a tiny army, the 2 of us have to go to a range. Okay, we'll drive there right now.
Yeah.
Oh, the 2 of us need to walk out there and shoot and grab the things, rather than, you can just imagine, like how much it is handing out all the ammunition and making sure it's counting it, and, can't have random bullets all over the place.
Yeah. What's number 6, Mr. Gore?
Greater control of your time. And I think that ties in. It's because you don't have to get 100 people to do this. You can make the decision like, okay, I can do this task, just like Lance was talking about, then I can do that task. Then I can go pick up my kids, and then I can go do another thing. And I can do all that because the only one I have to report to is the client and my one boss.
Yes.
And I don't have to have, like Leapskin, 12 people doing this all at one time, because we're all doing things and making the model and all that. So yeah, it's different.
Yep. And what they say in the article is basically that this allows you to improve your quality of life, right? Because you don't have this rigid corporate structure that's large, and basically our rule of thumb, which is the same one in this article, is like, we don't care as long as the work gets done. If you got to work from home today, you got to work from home today. If you have a doctor's appointment, I don't care. Like, just get your work done.
Yep.
Don't lie and make it happen.
Yep. We are a proponent of systems, but flexible systems based on principles.
Bingo.
Because too rigid systems, like planning department documents and things like that, systems, I cannot stress it enough, are often dumber than an individual person. And this is where bureaucracy fails, is I've been told multiple times, and you've seen it in government, in
large
literally
corporations.
Large corporations is, oh, we can't do that because of the rules. And you're like, yeah, but you realize that this makes no sense.
Yeah. No common sense at all.
Yep.
Number 7, doing the marketing, hiring, and accounting, etc. Getting to be an intimate part of running a business is one of the best parts of working in a small firm. You aren't just an architect, you are a small business owner. So this is what drew me when I was working for small firms before Alex and I co-founded F9, and that is being able to see that intimateness and understanding that, especially if you get with, I think this is something that all prospective graduates really need to consider. Sure, go work for Gensler. I have nothing against Gensler.
Do it.
Get in that corporate environment and see if you like it. Maybe you will. Yep. But at the complete opposite end of that, understand that if you got with a firm, let's say it was me and Al restarting F9 for some reason, and you're listening to this podcast and you hear that and you're like, well, they just restarted. It's F10.
Sure.
Or whatever it is. Or Gore Cayko Architects. That's what I think we wanted to do, right?
Yeah. Cayko Gore.
Cayko Gore, yeah. And you're like, oh, man, I'm going to get in on the ground floor of those guys' new firm. And if I prove that I am a great employee and I have leadership qualities and all of that, I bet I could move up the ladder much quicker in this small firm and get more responsibility, more rewards than I could over at Gensler. I think that's what drew me to working with small firms first.
Yep, I think that's great.
Even though we ended up just getting laid off and then starting our own firm. Still.
Yeah.
But I did get to go on, to be fair, several sales meetings with the owners of the previous firm I worked for, and that was helpful to understand that process.
Yep.
Number 8 hour.
Building personal relationships. Sometimes in a big firm, you can feel like a cog in the machine. That's true. Like we said, because of all the other points, how involved you are in the projects, how deep you are in the projects, you can really build those personal relationships. And what's also helpful too, there's different reasons for different size firms. One is in huge, complicated buildings, right? It's good to have specialties in structural layout and ADA and all this other stuff, right? But in smaller projects, it's really good to have a good concept of all of them to make the project tie in together, right? And then to do that, you're communicating normally with a client personally rather than a corporate committee, right? Even the big projects that we had at Liebskin, it would be a huge table, and there would be like the 10 of us, and then it would literally be like 10 corporate people. And I'm so glad after an hour they let all of us little people go, and then just...
Oh, and you didn't have to hear just the nonsense.
Dude, sure. Lance, it was book stacked, 400 pages. And I would look in because I remember, I can't remember his name right now, but like he was in on the meeting, and there's a book that, like 400 pages. They have one and they're just going through it. I check it 4 hours later. They're still going through that book. I was like, I'm glad I'm going to Burger King right now. I got something else to do.
Heck yeah. Yep. Flame broiled. Number 9, job security. Small firms can't afford to hire and fire because turnover of employees is extremely costly. 100% true. So once you are in a small firm, your job, assuming you do it well, is fairly safe because you are contributing directly to the entire firm's overall well-being. Small firms don't typically have any fat to trim. Now, I'm not saying people in small firms don't get laid off in the recession.
Sorry.
But I believe small firms hold on to their employees as long as possible, whereas big firms are quicker to fire people in order to maintain a bottom line. Right. And so if you are running a small firm, this is 100% true, with the exception of I would add a caveat to this, and that is if the small firm that you decide to go work for is putting all of their eggs in one basket, you need to really reconsider whether you think there's job security there. And that is something I hope everybody learned their lesson from in the last recession. We've talked about it too many times in this podcast.
Yep.
Number 10.
Recognition, right?
Yep.
So, like we talked about, a lot of times it's not the principals doing all the work. And I know some great firms here in Colorado Boulder where the famous principal, and I asked him how he managed. You mentioned him today during our meeting. He was on the podcast. He has a design build firm.
You mean one of your guests that you interviewed?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Say it again. Sorry. Just tell me that it's
Boulder architect.
Oh,
builder.
Scott Rodwin. Sorry, that's all I need.
Scott Rodwin.
Yeah.
Anyways, he speaks to all the clients, and then touches in with his staff, but his staff then leads it and does all that. And while Scott Rodwin's firm might get a reward, Scott knows, and everyone knows in that firm, like, hey, Molly did that project. That was all her.
Yep.
Great job, Molly.
Yep. Exactly.
If there's a Molly at that firm, shout out to you.
Yeah. So, I thought this was worth bringing up because obviously we are a small firm and we have people listening as a small firm. So there you go. Al?
I have something.
Back to you.
So since we are building, one of the projects I built almost a year ago, about 11 months ago, we have a punch list when we are basically wrapping up the building. Then at 1 month, we come out and see what's going on, and wrap up probably maybe some of those punch list things that maybe didn't get complete for X, Y, or Z. Maybe something didn't get shipped to us.
Mm-hmm.
Then at 3 months, we see if there's anything else needed. And then the big one is at 11 months, right? Because you have basically a 1 month warranty. So
1 month to complete that 11th, the final, is what you're saying.
Right.
That's why you do it at 11. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So anyways, I had zero expectations going in. And it could be everything from, hey, doors aren't hanging right, to paint's not doing right, to if there was anything with the mechanical or plumbing, you'd probably fix that right away. So it could be anything from a huge list to a small list. And it was extremely pleasant meeting with that owner again. The house looks amazing. There was one concern about like the sump pump, but we went in the crawl space and talked it through with him, and everything was fine. Mm-hmm. We're going to do something for free for him just to make the crawl space access a little bit easier. The mop sink, some of the caulking didn't hold right, so we're going to redo that. And then he's like, hey, I want this modification and this modification. I'll pay you for it. You guys want to do it? And one of our workers was there and was taking notes and is going to handle that.
Yep.
So it couldn't have been simpler. It couldn't have been more pleasant. It was a nice way to button up. Not only to do what's right for the client, right? But to see like, oh, okay, if there was something that failed, make sure not to do that again in the future. The house looked great. I was so happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
I have a punch list at 1:30 today for a TI that we are finishing up in Longmont. And so I'll be maybe talking about that next week. So you kind of get the end and then the beginning of how all that should work.
Yep.
Al Gore, what is thrashing?
So I had a great conversation with Mike McCallowitz. He, I think, will be on the podcast Monday morning edition, not next Monday, but the Monday afterwards. Looks like maybe I did my date wrong. Anyways, he's the author. If you've heard of the book The Pumpkin Plan, right? That's his book, Profit First. He just released Get Different. We went through a lot of the key concepts
on the show with him.
Yeah. So when that comes out, I encourage you to listen. But one thing he talked about was, and I wanted to bring this up, Lance and I have been talking to our staff about it, and we're going to keep talking about it because I think it's that important. It's a computer term. It's called thrashing, right? So when a computer is assigned, let's say one task, it does that task and probably does it pretty quick, right? When it's assigned two tasks, it is going back and forth and executing items on that task. And it's doing it in nanoseconds. So you think it's happening at the same time, but it's not. It's going back and forth and back and forth. Same thing with 3 tasks, 4 tasks, 5 tasks, 6 tasks, whatever. There gets a point, and it's known in the computer industry, where let's say you have 400 tasks. I'm just making up a number. I don't know what it actually is. Probably depends on the horsepower that you have in your computer. Mm-hmm. All it does is it goes from item 1 to item 2 and say, hey, anything going on here? Anything wrong? No? Okay. Nothing wrong? Okay, go to the next one. Anything wrong? Nope. Okay, go to the next one. Anything wrong? Nope. Go to the next one. And it does absolutely nothing because it's just checking in on that. So as small farm owners, a lot of times you can have a lot of projects and you can have them spinning in your brain, and you can think to yourself that you're making progress. If you're like, oh, I'll call this client and just let them know that we're going to get started on this. Oh, I need to talk to the structural engineer on the other one. Oh, on this one, I need to tell someone what the client told me. On another project, I'm going to tell the Lance, the principal, what's going on. On and so on. All of a sudden, you spend 2-3 days, and all you did was just kind of check in and touch on everything. And by the time that 3 days come, all those projects have cycled back to you, and you're just doing the same thing, and you got nothing done. Mm-hmm. Nothing done. You've just touched on them. So you really need to prioritize and execute. Meaning for this week, let's say there's 10 projects. Let's just make up a number. you need to distinguish and separate. Okay, 6 of them, I just need to send out information to the engineer, talk to the owner, and talk to my boss. The other 4, I have actual things I need to do and get done. And that's how I need to think about it, is that these 6 projects, I ain't going to do nothing but maybe communicate and let people know things. But 4 of them I have to execute on, so that you aren't just lumping them all together, touching all of them and doing nothing. Talk to the city. I need to talk to the city. There's many things that you can do that don't really do too much, even though they need to get done.
Yeah, it's something that you're going to experience once you get to a point in your career, and you have that many irons in the fire, projects in the fire, right? Sort of thing. So, I do think we have a Nick Reads, but before we get to that, responsibility is what I wanted to talk about. So if you have decided to maybe take the leap to go architect to builder, if you haven't checked out the architect to builder course, I highly recommend it, that Alex and I put together. But one of the project types that we are on our second one right now. The first one was the office that you see behind me and in me, are all over around me, right? It's a tenant finish, right? Essentially, it's a small commercial space. So we were doing another one. I have final inspections here this afternoon for a 4,000 square foot dog accessory store in Longmont, Colorado. And what I'm bringing up is the title of this, and even this today's podcast is, whose responsibility is it really? So one thing you should be aware of if you are doing just an interior tenant finish for commercial wise for a owner is how do you intersect with the core and shell? Whose responsibility is what? And there's 2 places I want you to, there's 2 things you should be writing down right now or thinking about or taking notes on, and that is, number 1, I need to see the owner's lease. What does the owner that I'm building for, what does their lease say that is going to be provided from them, to them from the developer, and what does that language entail? Did they spell it out exactly? So then the second thing is, if that isn't clear enough for you, and let's say at the same time that you're building, the core and shell folks have just completed their work, maybe it's a brand new strip mall or something. It's going to be a weird fine line, and I haven't crossed this fine line yet. We might need to in the next couple weeks in order to help this owner out, and that is understanding what the core and shell GC's contract is with the developer and what is spelled out that they are supposed to deliver. Here's some examples. Who's responsible for calling in the inspections, running the gas lines, and getting the meter set for your tenant? I've spoken with several other contractors, friends, and they've said, for the most part, for what they've seen in Colorado specifically, it is up to the building core and shell developer / the builder to take care of that. I have spoken with some people outside of Colorado, and they said in some jurisdictions, they are seeing it about split. In other words, it's up to the tenant to make sure their meter is set, or in the opposite, that would be, the core and shell, right? That's one example. But how is your interior finish meeting the exterior? Are you able to just plug in, or is some of your responsibility extending outward from there? So if we in the future on another tenant finish, that is one of the first things I would run right at. Even with like let's say you're doing a new custom house or a little custom commercial building, same sort of thinking, but like understand your critical path. So for a house, for example, one of the things that's probably going to hold you up is like services coming in. Right away when you get that permit, I want you to go understand and get in touch with what is like gas, getting gas to the house and a gas meter set. One of the very first things you should be tackling. Same thing with electrical, same thing with sewer, same thing with water. And make sure those things are in play right away, because what you're going to be up against is a government and corporate bureaucracies that are going to slow and muddy the whole thing down, because there's very specific procedures, like just Alex talked about on the podcast, on this episode specifically, that you have to wade through. These folks cannot untangle themselves from the web of bureaucracy that they have to go through. So understand whose responsibility is it really from the get-go. What do we got next?
Let's have responsible Nick read something to us.
Oh, he's the most responsible guy I've ever seen.
Hello, best friends. I hope you all had a great week this week. A reading. I sat there and forgot until what remained was the river that went by and I who watched. Eventually the watcher joined the river, and there was only one of us. I believe it was the river. Even the autonomy of the river was laid bare. Not far downstream was a dry channel where the river had once run. And part of the way to come to know a thing is through its death. But years ago I had known the river when it flowed through that now dry channel. So I can enliven its stony remains with the waters of memory. Norman MacLean, A River Runs Through It, and Other Stories. Toodles!
Toodles! Here's how I'm going to connect that. Beautiful read from Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Of Nick Reads. Thank you, as usual. Yep. Is just back to what I was speaking about before Nick got on to the podcast here, and that is if you learn from the critical paths, the rivers, let's call them rivers, right? And you know that the paths are still going to be somewhat similar on the next project. And it doesn't matter what kind of project it is. So recognize where that old channel was running, because you're going to forge a new one. And what is the quickest, most efficient way for you to make that run? How was that?
There you go.
There you go.
I call you Lance Fisherman Psycho. Well, I think it's time now. Let's bring down the crew for a little A.R.E. Jeopardy.
Probably.
All right. This is for wood construction. This is a sheathing question, so your OSB sheathing. The question is number 1. You should provide a blank inch space between floor sheathing. Is it A, 0 inches, B, an 1/8 inch, C, a 1/4 inch, or D, a 1/2 inch? So when you are laying sheathing and you are placing it together, it is tongue and groove, but you should provide blank space, inch space, so how much space between floor sheathing? Is it A, 0 inches, no space, B, an 1/8 inch, C, a 1/4 inch, or D, 1/2 inch? All right. B, which is an 1/8 inch. You are all correct. Did you all know that, or did you guess? Okay. Wood flexes a little bit, but one of the main reasons also is your sink, piping explodes, something falls over, it gets wet. If everything is super tight, it's going to start to buckle up on you. Yep.
Good point.
So you use a nail. Yep. You use a nail. And then,
but are you talking about where the tongue meets the groove, or are you talking about the flat edge?
Both, because where the tongue meets the groove, the tongue will still go in there, but there's an 1/8 inch between the top part, and then the tongue is a little bit thicker, so that it goes in. And then Corey says once you get good enough, you can just eyeball it.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay, 2. What does CLT stand for? Is it A, connected laid timber? Is it B, custom laid timber? Is it C, cross laminated timber? Or is it D, cut laminated timber? I will not repeat them. C. You guys are amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
How did they know that?
Cross laminated timber.
Number 3, what is used to manage stormwater runoff to prevent flooding and erosion? Is it A, retention basin, B, detention basin, C, detention pond, or D, stormwater sewer?
Read it again.
What is used to manage stormwater runoff to prevent flooding and erosion? Is it A, retention basin, B, detention basin, C, detention pond, or D, stormwater sewer?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. We got A, C, D. The correct answer is A, retention basin.
Okay.
I
would argue with that question.
I'm going to unpack this after we get past 4, okay?
Okay.
Can I get a quick count of where we got? So we got 2, 3.
two.
Bailey is murdering lately. Will this be 4 in a row? Darn him. Okay, number 4. What is used as an overflow to manage stormwater runoff when other basins are full? Yeah, Gresh loves this. A, retention basin. B, detention basin. C, detention pond. D, stormwater sewer. We already got the answers. Good. No repeats this time. We got D, C, D, or D. The correct answer is B, detention basin.
So explain this.
All right. So basically, a retention basin, that was the first answer, is used to manage stormwater runoff to prevent flooding and erosion. Always contains water with surrounding landscaping. Detention basin is used as an overflow to manage stormwater runoff when other basins are full, always dry, except during storms.
Okay. Caveat to all this is whatever jurisdiction you are in or state that you're in, make sure to ask your civil, because there are certain terms and they mean certain things in certain regions. So even though if this is a widespread things, everyone might be using the words differently than that, and please use the ones that are in your area. Bailey, are we going to Perkins or Blue Corn? There we go.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's all I have. Lance, take us out.
If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Make sure you smash that like button. Hit subscribe on YouTube. We will see you next week.